Why CrossFit athletes don't plateau. Now, I could give you the quick answer on why they don't.
CrossFit's constant variance makes it virtually impossible to plateau. With over 150 plus movements with different variations, stimulus, and modalities, there is no way your body can adapt to the kind of training that CrossFit provides. So that's why I believe CrossFit is never plateau. And before you blow up me in the comments all like, I completely agree. And if you think my opinion is completely biased, then that's okay. However, I have created videos on my channel with the impending problems about CrossFit and what I personally think's ruined the sport. So I'm on your side here.
I'll have to go a little bit more in depth to convince you guys. So, here we go. A few days ago,
I was sitting at my computer, editing away videos as normal. I opened up my phone to relieve myself from the big screen in front of me, to look at an even smaller screen below me. I saw a post which showed Matt Fraser's performance in the recent strength and depth competition. Now, if you don't know Matt Fraser, he's the fittest in CrossFit 4 years running, the most dominant athlete since Rich Froning, and he's comparable to other athletes such as Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Roger Federer, etc. You might disagree, but in relevance to CrossFit, that's how I think of Matt, as a legend of the sport. Now, let's get back to the point.
Matt performed a workout that he previously performed at the CrossFit Games called the Standard. Now, it wasn't really the workout that intrigued me. It was the fact that Matt was able to beat his own time by 15 seconds. It's really not that much when you think about it, but think about it this way.
Matt was at the CrossFit Games against a field of athletes who were arguably the best at that point, being pushed all weekend by Noah Olsen. A lot was on the line. I personally believe that this was the best workout performance to date. Yet, he was able to exceed that performance at strength and depth without the same push he had at the games.
So what is it that I'm insinuating?
That Matt is now fitter than he was last year. And he's still months out from being at his peak, which means even the top 1% of athletes in the world, for CrossFit of course, are still improving day by day.
I personally believe that there's three main reasons why CrossFitters don't plateau. Constantly varied, functional movements performed at relatively high intensity. Let's talk about constantly varied.
Constantly varied. Based on CrossFit's definition of itself, it stands for, in its simplicity, CrossFit's first fitness standard. This can be broken down into 10 general physical skills. Skills built in training, which are considered as endurance, stamina, strength, and flexibility. These are movements that you'd see in sports such as swimming, running, rowing, snow skiers, strongman athletes, and even gymnasts. Training that refers to activity that improves performance through measurable, organic changes to the body, things such as coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy. You're looking at ball sports, tennis, bowling, golf, archery, even biathlons with ski plus shooting. These guys are the kings and queens of accuracy. Then, finally, activities that improve performance through changes in the nervous system, power and speed. Olympic weightlifters and powerlifters have a lot of this, being able to move massive loads over distances quickly.
Now, what relevance does all these modalities have with CrossFit? And what does it have to do with CrossFit athletes not plateauing, you might ask?
Well, let's take a look at our training triangle and compare the pair. Comparing the obvious, Olympic weightlifters to CrossFit athletes. Yes, Olympic weightlifters are much more powerful and way faster and accurate with their lifting, especially with all the CrossFit fail videos circling the internet.
However, CrossFit athletes not only have to perform weightlifting movements, but they also have to perform those movements under fatigue, providing them with some level of stamina.
Generally, most lifts come after a long weekend of competing, putting them into a state of endurance to be able to perform again and again.
This is just one example of why CrossFit athletes seem to keep PBing and never seem to plateau.
Here's one more example. NFL quarterback Tom Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, is one of the slowest players on the field. When you look at his training pyramid, it would look something like this. Yes, he's still an athlete. Yes, he's one of the greats, and he's still amazing. But in a sport like NFL, where specialists are the key to success, Tom doesn't need to be fast. He's got running backs to be fast for him. Tom doesn't need to be strong. He has an offensive line to help protect him. He needs to be accurate. He needs to be good at balance and coordination, and he needs to know the sport and make split-second decisions. Where CrossFit athletes are generalists. Their training pyramid looks something like this, mostly focusing on GPP or general physical preparedness and only very small amounts of actual pure CrossFit because they, just like NFL athletes, don't know what the events are going to be. They need to prepare for everything. Being proficient in all 10 modalities will make you the fittest in CrossFit. Being strong may win you events, but it won't win you the games. You need to be consistent all around.
Back to the original question, why does this mean that they don't plateau?
Well, 1 month, you may not be able to hit a new deadlift PR. You might not be feeling the strongest. Squatting, you may not have hit a PB in 6 months, but something else will give. You might get 10 ring muscle ups, whereas last month you can only do 8. With CrossFit being so constantly varied, your body has no time to adapt because it can't.
There's always going to be a situation where you're going to progress in a movement, giving you not only the mental image, but the physical benefits of always PBing.
Speaking of movements, let's talk about reason number 2.
Functional movements. Now, before I get attacked by everyone by being like, butterfly pull-up isn't a functional movement, or touch and go deadlifts isn't really a deadlift, it's just bouncing the bar, or things like handstand walking and handstand push-ups aren't real movements, I'm not trained to be a ninja, I'm trained to be an athlete, I fully agree with you. Once again, I'm on your side. Video referencing all these things that ruin CrossFit down below.
However, CrossFit contains many functional movements, pulled from every sport imaginable to help hit those 10 modalities we've talked about earlier. They also are movements that the body naturally performs in a day-to-day life. Things like the deadlift, picking something up and bringing it to your hips. Air squatting, sitting down, standing up. We all need a shit, so if you can't air squat, then I really feel sorry for you. Shoulder press, putting things over your head.
These movements are functional movements that we perform in our day-to-day lives, whether it's at work, at home, or at the gym. They all have one thing in common: compound.
90% of CrossFit's movement database are compound movements, working a range of muscle groups in the body to provide you with maximum gains for minimal effort. I can already hear the haters saying,
CrossFitters don't make gains.
And to your surprise, a lot of CrossFit athletes don't. CrossFit promotes functional fitness and health. Its spectator experience promotes athletes. The athletes and anyone serious have the gains. But also, that's the same when you walk into a Globo gym. 90% of people there are just there to move and stay healthy. There isn't 100 Arnold Schwarzeneggers in the mirror flexing.
When Greg Glassman talks about the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum, he ranks sick people on the same level as athletes.
Because both parties wear their bodies down for performance, the average NFL player cuts 5 years off his life expectancy. Same with average CrossFit athletes. According to some, it even cuts more.
But functional movements provide us with the stimulus that keeps your body guessing, combined with the constant variance of different movements so your body never adapts to the same training schedule, combined with a great CrossFit program. Those are 2 great reasons on why CrossFit is never plateaued. However, there's one more reason that CrossFit athletes don't plateau, and that's going to lead us into our final topic: relatively high intensity.
They say intensity can be contributed to the body's ability to adapt to training. With higher the intensity, higher the rewards, but also higher the risk. When we talk about CrossFit, we think about stupid levels of intensity people put in, causing injuries, accidents, and many failed complications, which are all hilarious in their own way if you ask me, but you can't beat them. Join them, am I right?
Let's have a look at CrossFit.com's definition of high intensity.
Dissecting their information into English, it mostly talks about comparing 2 athletes, grandma in a wheelchair and a CrossFit Games athlete, and how scaling can be used effectively to allow both athletes to perform the exact same workout and still hit the same stimulus.
However, I'm going to agree with Ben Bergeron's definition of high intensity with the addition of the word relative.
Because essentially, high intensity does mean no regard for personal safety. Being injured won't help anyone. However, the addition of the word relative, I believe that alone means that 2 athletes with different fitness levels can achieve the same stimulus by changing the movements in a way that makes it equal.
Now, I know what you guys are thinking. You shouldn't be deadlifting 300 pounds in a workout. That's just stupidity.
And in some cases, it is. From a competitor's point of view, that's sport. The same as an NFL player getting tackled, hockey player getting blocked, or a soccer player getting slide tackled, it's part of the game. And when money's on the line, the rules are always bent.
However, from a training standpoint, Doing 300-pound deadlifts for multiple reps isn't a great way to train strength safely. However, that's where we add the addition of the relative intensity.
Moving a weight that's both challenging but safe at an intensity that promotes growth but not bad technique is my definition of relatively high intensity. Agree to disagree. But just like in life, comfortability breeds sheep, whereas discomfort breeds leaders. If you always work within your comfort zones, never pushing yourself harder than you perceive as uncomfortable, you will physically and mentally never grow.
This is where bodybuilding becomes a great example.
Those last few reps of a bicep curl, leg press, or even skull crushers can be the difference between gains and no gains. Going to failure in a controlled, safe environment has massive benefits.
So just to recap,
CrossFit athletes don't plateau because of the constant variance. With over 150 plus movements and a generalist approach to training, it makes it virtually impossible to come to a standstill because there's just so much to work on. Functional movements, compound exercises used in a day-to-day life performed at a relatively high intensity, pushing your physical and mental limits in a safe, controlled environment. That's my definition of CrossFit, and that's also the reason why I believe CrossFit Games and all CrossFit athletes don't plateau.
Comment down below on your thoughts. If you have a counterpoint, if you have a different side of the argument, or if you completely agree or disagree with me, leave it down below. If you love the video, hit subscribe, hit like, join the team, become a beast. And this is what I'm gonna leave you guys with today. CrossFit athletes are good at everything, but they are great at nothing. Hope you enjoyed the video. Stay a beast.